After 28 years, Biofunction has invested more than $6.1 million in applied research, focused on the complexities of chronic pain and functional restoration. We then use that research to develop, test, and demonstrate proof-of-concept approaches in real-world clinical settings, working with more than 1,500 people living with chronic pain. Biofunction's story has always been about understanding function, restoring capability, and finding better ways to address the complexities of chronic pain. Today, we are beginning a new chapter. A national moment is upon us. September is Pain Awareness Month. It gives us a chance to share our results, tell our story, invite collaboration, and explore new ways of addressing chronic pain across the full spectrum of patients, providers, and regulators. What makes this moment different is that we can move beyond simply describing the problem and begin connecting what we have learned with others who are also searching for better solutions. That means broadening the conversation beyond treatment alone and asking what meaningful chronic pain care should ultimately help people achieve. We are no longer asking only what can be done to treat chronic pain. We are also asking how we can help people better understand it, participate more confidently in managing it, restore function, rebuild confidence, and live more fully despite it. That is the opportunity before us now, to bring together clinical experience, analytics, functional restoration, patient education, self-care, and collaboration to help shape a more comprehensive approach to chronic pain care. The scale of the chronic pain problem is enormous, yet much of its impact remains silent and largely invisible. Nearly 1 in 4 American adults live with chronic pain. Millions experience pain severe enough to regularly interfere with work and daily life. The economic consequences are equally staggering. Recent estimates place the annual U.S. burden at more than $635 billion in healthcare costs and lost productivity. And behind those numbers is an even more serious human consequence. People living with chronic pain face a substantially increased risk of depression, disability, isolation, and suicide. But the greatest cost cannot be measured in dollars. It is measured in lost function, lost independence, lost hope, and for some, lost lives. Biofunction is a forensic disability consulting company, built at the intersection of measurement and restoration. For 28 years, we have largely worked quietly and from the ground up, focusing less on promoting what we were doing, and more on understanding what was actually needed to address one fundamental question. How do we separate pain, fear, deconditioning, behavior, motivation, and true physical capability, and then safely restore function? Answering that question required years of applied research, clinical observation, creating analytics, developing methodology, and validating with real-world testing. More than $6.1 million of our own resources later, we believe we have now developed a meaningful foundation, one that is now ready to be shared, studied, challenged, and strengthened through collaboration with others. Chronic pain is complex, stubborn, and frequently misunderstood. When we continue to approach chronic pain as though it behaves like acute pain, where pain reliably signals ongoing tissue injury, we can miss an important part of the problem. Pain is ultimately an experience produced by the nervous system and interpreted by the brain, even though it is very real and felt throughout the body. Pain itself does not directly measure the strength, endurance, or physical capability of our muscles, but it can profoundly influence our confidence and willingness to use them. Over time, pain-related fears, uncertainty, avoidance, and reduced activity can contribute to deconditioning and further loss of confidence. That is why simple, non-shaming education is so important. We also need to replace uncertainty using objective, unbiased measurements, showing patients what they can safely do, helping them rebuild confidence in movement, and gradually restoring function even when pain remains stubborn. Our work with more than 1,500 chronic pain patients who had been rated as permanently disabled taught us an important lesson. Success must be defined by outcomes that matter to the patient. Analysis of our historical data, including a 7-year restoration outcome study, suggests several important measures of meaningful success. First, patients want a significant reduction in pain, preferably with less dependence on medication. Second, they want to know that their strength, endurance, and physical tolerances have improved from where they started, and that those improvements can be sustained over time. Third, patients want their lives back. They want the opportunity to return to productive activity and avoid the serious personal, social, and economic consequences that can accompany permanent disability. We also learned that subjective clinical estimates of capability should increasingly give way to objective measurements of physical capacity. When patients can see what their bodies are actually capable of doing safely and sustainably, those measurements can help them reframe fear, eliminate uncertainty, and reshape assumptions about their physical limitations. Timing also matters. Historically, referrals to restoration services have often occurred too late, when valuable rehabilitation opportunities have been lost. Early intervention should become the standard, not simply an aspiration. And finally, not every chronic pain patient requires a comprehensive functional restoration program. Some patients retain substantial strength and endurance following injury but remain limited by pain-related fears, coping difficulties, uncertainty, or psychosocial barriers. For these individuals, targeted pain coping education and psychosocial retraining may be enough to prevent pain and negative behavioral reactions from unnecessarily controlling their functional capabilities. The lesson from 1,500 patients is that successful chronic pain care should not be defined by pain alone. It should be measured by reduced suffering, restored capability, greater confidence, sustained function, and a return to a meaningful life. The model for restoring capability in chronic pain can appear simple, but rebuilding confidence requires much more than exercise alone. Patients need repeated objective measurements showing not only what they can do, but whether that function is safe, sustainable, and improving over time. They also need to understand their pain responses, what triggers them, how their fears and uncertainty can influence pain behavior, and how the brain and nervous system can create barriers to their recovery. Restoration must therefore be scientifically controlled. Meaningful neuromuscular adaptation and remodeling requires progressive muscle loading, but this progression must occur within clearly defined safety and performance limits. Healthcare providers, who administer restoration treatments, need to know how efficient a motion was performed, they need to know when performance begins to deteriorate, and they need to know whether the activity can be safely repeated or advanced. This is where objective work simulation becomes essential to our model. The human eye cannot reliably detect subtle changes in speed, rhythm, efficiency, and consistency during repeated movement. As a result, knowing when to advance or to not advance treatment cannot be safely determined. Current state-of-the-art work simulation technology can capture time motion data at approximately 100 measurements per second, allowing performance to be graded objectively, rather than simply observed. Those measurements help define three critical boundaries: safe performances, emerging risks, and the objective endpoints of successful restoration. For healthy individuals, pain and fatigue often help signal when to continue or stop. In chronic pain, those signals may be amplified or associated with fear of re-injury. The goal is not to teach patients to push through pain, but to determine how far they can safely progress without unnecessarily aggravating or exacerbating their pain. Objective measurements provide those stopping points and progression goals while also giving patients something equally important: validation. When patients can see measurable evidence that their capability has improved, particularly in movements they once feared, confidence begins to return. Finally, restoration cannot end when treatment ends. Patients need education and practical self-management skills. These skills help them understand what is happening, helps them moderate their pain reactions, helps them reduce healthcare dependencies, and makes them more confident in making independent decisions about their activity and function. After 28 years of working with chronic pain patients, we believe Biofunction's history now aligns with a much larger national need. The growing emphasis on better measurement, standardization, education, and functional outcomes creates an opportunity to bring what we have learned into a broader movement, through collaboration, partnership, and scalable approaches to improving chronic pain care. Our work can contribute patient-centered, clinical, analytic, and educational experiences to a larger movement for better chronic pain care. This brings us to our latest project, a chronic pain wellness retreat. Biofunction intends to translate what we have learned over 28 years into a meaningful community-based educational experience, focused on the fundamentals of living better with chronic pain. The retreat is not intended to replace medical care. It is designed to complement it, while also creating opportunities for healthcare professionals to participate in education, support, and community engagement. Chronic pain affects far more than the body. It influences confidence, activity, relationships, independence, and quality of life, which requires a whole-person conversation. Our retreat intends to move this conversation beyond the traditional clinical setting and into a supportive environment where people can learn how to better understand their pain, develop practical self-care skills, and explore ways to live more fully despite it. Most importantly, the educational content is being developed from decades of clinical experience and with appropriate healthcare professional input and oversight. Of course, not everyone will be able to attend a retreat, and learning should not have to wait for one. That is why we created the healedpain.org website to be a doorway into this educational approach. The website begins the same conversation we hope to continue through the retreat, helping people better understand chronic pain, recognize how the brain and nervous system influence the pain experience, and learn practical self-care strategies that can improve daily life. On the website, you will find a simple, light-hearted introduction to neuroplasticity, followed by a more in-depth workshop on living better with chronic pain. These resources are free and available to anyone who wants to begin learning. For those who want to become more involved, the website also describes the planned Chronic Pain Wellness Retreat project and provides a starting point for individuals and organizations interested in volunteering, participating, collaborating, or helping us further develop this educational approach. The retreat creates the experience. The healedpain.org website opens the door. Chronic pain is simply too large, too complex, and too deeply connected to physical, behavioral, psychosocial, and social factors for any one organization or discipline to address alone. For 28 years, Biofunction has worked on one part of that challenge: measuring capability, restoring function, understanding pain-related barriers, and learning from the outcomes of more than 1,500 chronic pain patients. What is different now is that much of that experience has matured. The research, clinical observations, measurement strategies, restoration methods, and patient education concepts that developed separately over many years are beginning to come together into something more coordinated, practical, and actionable. That creates an opportunity not simply to share what Biofunction has learned, but to invite others to examine it, challenge it, improve it, and help determine where it may have broader value. The enormity of chronic pain demands collaboration. Clinicians, researchers, educators, advocates, patients, community organizations, and other stakeholders each bring knowledge that no single group possesses alone. Why collaborate now? Because we finally have enough experience to contribute something meaningful, and the chronic pain problem is far too important for us to keep working in isolation. We offer a simple message: after 28 years of learning from chronic pain patients, we believe what we have learned can now be translated into practical education that helps people live better with pain. We invite you to visit our Healed Pain website and explore the details of our planned Chronic Pain Wellness Retreat, the educational resources we are developing, and the ideas behind this community-based approach. We hope you will see merit in what we are building, and see a place for yourself or your organization in helping us strengthen it, expand it, and bring it to those who need it most. Our goal is practical: to give people understandable self-care knowledge, greater confidence in managing their pain, and better tools for participating in their own recovery. But beyond education, we are working towards something even more important: restoring hope. For people struggling with chronic pain every day, hope can be the beginning of change. If you believe this effort has merit, we invite you to join us in bringing practical self-care education and renewed hope to more people living with chronic pain. Supporting references are provided here for those who wish to explore the source material further. But our most important next step is this: come join us.